So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In the next session that we are going to have, the topic is Next Gen Leaders, Agents of Change for Achieving Future Growth. And this Next Gen Leaders and our Next Gen Summit is all coincidence because we were focusing on Next Gen in terms of technology. We thought we will also focus on Next Gen Leaders at the same time because they are also very important for us. So with that into mind, our team thought of bringing this session out of the 11 sessions that we planned for Next Gen Chemicals and Petrochemicals Summit 2021. In this, we are going to discuss about the vision for future expansion and sustainable growth, increasing exports, market share, creating leadership pool to drive future growth, working in multidisciplinary groups, and this new point that I have added because of the COVID part of it is leading with physical and virtual teams, which was not there earlier, and staying ahead of customers' fast-changing needs and preparing for disruptive change. So let me introduce my speakers to you. Mr. Kaushal Soparkar, Managing Director, Meghmani Finechem. Under the leadership of Mr. Kaushal Soparkar, Meghmani Group is not only standing tall among stiff competition, but also raising the bar and setting tough targets to establish giants. Mr. Soparkar has played a pivotal role in successfully commissioning the chlor-alkali complex at GIDC Dahej in western region of India. Next is Mr. Meghav Mehta, Director, Deepak Phenolics Limited. He has joined Deepak Group in 2009. Mr. Meghav Mehta oversaw the successful completion of many multi-million-dollar EPCM projects. Besides focusing on business development, he has also spearheaded digital transformation initiatives within Deepak Group. We have the next speaker is Mr. Ankit Patel, Executive Director, Bordal Chemicals. Ankit Patel is the promoter and Executive Director of Bordal Chemicals. He has been on the board of the company for the last 13 years. He holds a Bachelor of Economics and MBA Finance from US. I'm happy to introduce Mr. Mirit Gogri, Head Corporate Strategy, RT Industries. And let me announce you, when he spoke for the first time in an industry forum, it was Indian Chemical News Forum. So I'm really thankful that he took this opportunity to come once again on our platform. Mr. Gogri is spearheading the setting up of a world-class research and development center with expertise of 300 scientists and engineers. With a highly focused approach, he has driven RT Industries to achieve the company's vision of becoming global partner of choice in the specialty chemical space. We also have with us Mr. Raviraj Choksi, Managing Director, Apcotex Industries. And he has worked with Apcotex Industries in various capacities since 2005 and is in charge of all operations of the company. He is also on the executive committee of the Indian Chemical Council. Now, without wasting any time, let me start the panel discussion, and let me start with Kaushal. And my question to him would be, Meghmani has been making a lot of noises in the industry, Kaushal Soparkar ji. So you are looking at what we can say future expansion in a big way and also sustainable growth. And even when we listen to Maulik Mehta ji in our inaugural, so he was very gung-ho about it. So how do you see the vision for future expansion and sustainable growth for Meghmani Finechem? So over to Mr. Kaushal Soparkar.
Pranay, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and making a part of this exclusive panel. And I'm also very thankful to all the panelists to join us today. The question you asked, Praveenji, yes, we are making a lot of noise, but I believe that's a very positive news we are making, a positive noise we are making for the industry. And idea is very simple. What we are looking at it in Meghmani is that India is on a growth trajectory. The world is looking at China plus one strategy. And in chemical sector, China plus one, India is ahead than many other countries because of our sheer scale and infrastructure. Among that, we are present in Gujarat since 1977. So these are the added factor what we see as an established chemical player. And we, under that vision is very simple, that every year we will like to grow by minimum 15 to 20%. And India has a lot to grow in chemical sector. There are a lot of chemicals are getting imported in India. And accordingly, we have to go for the import substitute and support the Make in India scheme, where government is supporting a lot through PLI and also through other various schemes. And if we do that, then definitely any company will have a bright future.
Thank you, Kaushalji. Now I would request Megam Mehta, if you can throw some light on your company vision for the future.
Absolutely, and yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you, Praveenji, for the opportunity, and it's a pleasure to be on this panel. Deepak Group's growth is, I mean, the strategy is very straightforward. We do look at, while there is globalization and a lot of requirement, a global player, that there is just as much reason to be keeping India and Indian customers in focus. So our growth strategy is going to continue to look at import substitution, interfacing with the government to see where the requirements are growing. We do appreciate all of the things that are encouraging even our industry downstream, even though directly sometimes chemicals is not coming into PLI scheme. But we do see the benefit of that as part of being the ecosystem. For us, growth is also very much driven by encouraging and investing in local talent. So getting good people, getting right people, giving them great opportunities to really do world scale level of work is what we pride ourselves on. And having that kind of a team that is motivated, that is driven, is going to be beneficial to more than just us as a company. It'll benefit the country as well. So those are the few pillars that we look to make strengths for us in our growth and in our vision.
So thank you, Meghavji. I would request now Ankit Patelji, if you can talk about your vision for future expansion and sustainable growth for Bordil Chemicals.
Thank you, Praveenji, and thank you, my panel members. Thank you for the amazing opportunity. We at Bodal, we are the most integrated dyestuff company of India. That's what we would like to call ourselves. Started our journey with intermediates and then moved into forward integration of dyestuff and then backward integration into basic chemicals. Recently, we've acquired a chlor-alkali plant in North India. So that is one of the growth areas for us. We are in the process of expanding the capacity of that plant and also upgrading the technology, which will result in a lower expense for us. Other than that, we are starting a greenfield complex in Saykha GIDC PCBIR. There we are planning sulfuric acid 1,050 tons per day plant with a few of its derivatives. Also, we are diversifying into benzene derivative products, where we are setting up 6 different benzene downstream products with a 4-step integration. So that is the plan as of now. We are also looking at some brownfield opportunities in our existing dyestuff model, where we are in one of our subsidiaries, we are starting a vinyl sulfone plant, which is almost ready. So that's one area where the brownfield expansion is taking place. Also, we are looking at growing the dyestuff capacity in coming 2 to 3 years. So that is the plan as of now. Like everybody else is saying, and like you mentioned, I think the opportunity is definitely there for the Indian companies with the right infrastructure and timing. I think it's really a right time to encash on this opportunity and grow in the right direction.
But wanted to know from you, which is more challenging, the brownfield expansion, the greenfield expansion, or the acquisitions that you are planning to have? Because all these three looks very difficult for me. So as in a young age, how are you managing all these things at the same time?
So greenfield is definitely the most challenging, I think, for everyone. I think for any kind of manufacturing industry, because you have to start all the way from land acquisition to getting all the right clearances, right permissions, all the infrastructure like water, effluent discharge, electricity. So it also includes a lot of expense. Plus, greenfield usually takes place in a new area. So for us, we are moving into Sayakha for the first time. So that's also a challenge. Acquisition is a bit tricky. We don't find it very challenging, but it is a tricky subject, because when you acquire, there's an older culture, older trend, older setup. For us, we ended up in a new area, which is completely different than Gujarat. Gujarat usually works in a 500,000 crores, 1,000 kilometer of radius in terms of all the basic chemicals, etc. Everything is available right here. Almost everything can be sold around this area. Where in North India, it works on a multiple states kind of a region, where our radius of business is like 2,000 kilometers. So it's a bit different. And acquisition, definitely there has to be some turnaround that's usually required, because somebody doing really well is never selling the business. Acquisition opportunity always comes where the business has some issues or has some commercial challenges. So definitely a turnaround process needs to be done. And brownfield, I think it's the smoothest and the easiest, because you're already there, with some kind of a setup, your teams are there, your local needs are all fulfilled, So I think, like I said, greenfield, then acquisitions, and then brownfield.
Thank you, Ankit ji. Hello. Thank you, Ankit ji. Thank you, Ankit ji. Mirik, you look after corporate strategy for Aarti Industries. So, is it a short-term strategy or a long-term strategy, and how are you planning for future expansion and sustainable growth?
Thank you so much, Praveen ji, and everyone else on the panel. It's a great privilege to speak with all of you. So, I think what I look at in terms of corporate strategy is the mid-term and the longer-term strategy. So, mid-term strategy evolves around. So we are also sort of similar to a very integrated player in the benzene and the toluene value chain. So we want to go more forward integrated. So there are some opportunities where we link the import substitution with our value chain, which creates quite a good proposition for our customers, because they don't need to worry about the back-end supply chain issues, because we are well backward integrated, as well as looking at newer value chains itself. So can we take a new commodity and replicate our successes that we have in the classic benzene case or in toluene in a certain aspect? So we would want to extend into newer value chains. That is also part of our medium-term strategy. But I think the longer-term strategy is where we are just sowing our seeds, where we want to capture the mega trends of the world. So I think we firmly believe that climate change is going to overshadow a lot of mega trends, which will actually give opportunities for companies who are able to adapt to it in a nice way, able to provide sustainable solutions, specifically from an energy point of view. So trying to just understand what will be the application from a longer term post 7-year horizon. So till 2 to 7-year horizon, I think it's pretty clear, extend the value chain and replicate into newer value chains. But post 7-year horizon, the aim is to understand better what a climate change focused world will require and adapt ourselves to cater to that demand. There may be some challenges in it also, given, as I said previously in the talk, Praveenji, fossil fuel free heat is not solved yet in the world. So how do we as an industry solve fossil fuel free heat and provide a relatively less carbon intense product to the customer, which is a longer term strategy that we are evolving. So that's the two aspects, not too much focus on the really short term, less than 1 year strategy for the company, for me at least at personal level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mirik ji. Now I see on our screen 2 logos, and Deepak's logo is also blue and yellow, and Apcotex logo is blue as well as green, and these are the 2 colors which chemical industry is really focusing on these days because of the green chemistry that people are talking about. with that into background, let me talk to Mr. Abhiraj Choksi at Kotex and understand from him how he's preparing for the disruptive change, apart from the logo which is there in your background.
Thank you, Praveenji, for the opportunity, and thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to meet everyone on the panel. Absolutely, disruptive change. I think there are two kinds of disruptive changes, that one sees. One are, the ones that you can see coming, and then the ones that you don't. The ones that you see coming are expected, for example, shared mobility or, EVs causing a disruption in the auto industry, or renewable energy sources causing disruption in the oil and gas industry. I think this may affect some of the products that we manufacture today. And, for example, if anyone is supplying to the oil and gas or auto industry, I think one needs to prepare for the worst and allocate capital and resources accordingly. So if as a chemical company, you're completely dependent on any industry or area that you could see a potential disruption, then you really need to think about how to pivot your business and de-risk it from that disruption. The other thing, of course, that can help with staying ahead of the curve is meeting industry experts, consultants, and most importantly, talking to customers. We've found that, talking to customers and understanding what is going on in the market, there is no second to that. For the last 1.5 years, of course, that's been a challenge, but thanks to virtual technologies such as these, it's at least there is something going on, and we're able to talk to customers. It's been especially tough with international clients. So I would say that's a little bit on disruptive technologies, which you can see coming. The other is, of course, disruptions that you don't see coming. The COVID-19 pandemic is a great example. Black swan events like the 2008-9 crash, any sort of war or political instability is another thing that you may not see coming. But one can ensure that the business and the finances of the company are strong enough to withstand any kind of massive disruptions like these. I believe that these kinds of disruptions are generally short term, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. So I think not being dependent on one industry or one geography, for instance, that could be one strategy. At least that's what we have done over the last few years, built the business around making it more robust. And also keeping enough cash on the books and managing debt well. That's also important to manage these kinds of shocks. We spend a lot of time with the senior management and board level discussing potential risks and what-if scenarios to make the business more robust and withstand these kinds of shocks. So to conclude, I'd say in this current VUCA world, a robust and more frequent risk assessment exercise at the senior leadership level is absolutely critical, and to work with specific mitigation measures. So these are some of the things that we've been doing, and I think if you manage both the expected disruptions and the unexpected, it can be managed. Let me put it that way. Of course, it's going to happen, that's for sure, but it can be managed.
Thank you, Abhiraj. Now let me go to the second round, and I will reverse the order, and it will start with you once again. So my question to you would be, we are looking at $300 billion by 2025. And these are what the predictions that have been given by Indian Chemical Council and by a lot of experts, BCG and others. So keeping that into view, how are you creating the leadership pool so that you are able to get the maximum market share, you are able to increase your revenue and profit at the same time, plus you are able to extend your arm or extend your reach to other products where you are not. And Ankit talked about very beautifully when he said that he's entering newer geographies, he's entering newer products. So keeping that into view, leadership pool is very important for future growth. So Abhiraj wanted to know from you, how are you planning? Yeah, is there any plan that you have put in place? And if you can talk to us, because this will be more helpful for people who are, what we can say, starting on a smaller scale, but have plans to grow big. So over to Abhiraj Choksi.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. So, well, I'd like to start off by saying, we're lucky being in India. I think we have a large potential pool of talent available outside the industry as well as within the industry. I mean, some of the other smaller countries, a chemical industry of scale would just not be possible because they don't have the potential for that the talent pool available. However, having said that, there are several challenges. The chemical industry in India or worldwide also, there are several sub-industries, right? So every sub-segment is so different from the others. I mean, all the panelists in this room today, all of us are in the chemical industry, but all of us are doing different things. And we're all catering to a specific sub-segment within the industry, whether it's the technology or the molecules or the as well as the industry segments that we cater to. So because of that, at least we have found it harder to recruit leadership talent from outside for specific functions like R&D, production, technical service, even projects in some cases. Yes, in other support functions, sometimes it's, I think you have some more flexibility. So I think developing a leadership pool from within as far as possible is important. Encouraging them and supporting them is something we strive towards at times. But at times, we have to recruit from outside. So again, having recruitment and a rigorous interview process is extremely important. We started this journey. We decided to get the basics. Transparent, robust, fair, co-created with our leadership. Have a full buy-in leadership team, but also from across the organization is extremely important. And this process needs to be communicated well, communicated again and again about how you're going to assess people, what is important, what's the culture of the company, what are the values of the company. And in a growing company, you also need to review and reassess this every few years. So I think that's something that we've done well in the last 10, 15 years. And this PMS, this performance management system, should also throw up the potential performers. And for these performers to give them clarity on their career paths is extremely important. And yeah, I mean, there are a few other things as well to develop a strong leadership. We encourage cross-functional responsibilities. We move people, to take over completely different areas and really go through the whole learning process and challenging them. So these are a few of the things that we do, and all this put together, I think, we try and execute and develop a strong leadership team.
Thank you, Abhiraj. My question to Miri could be, there are two types of disruptions that one should prepare for. One is the disruption with respect to environment, and we saw the disruption during COVID-19. And another is the disruption which you cause because of you make Apple kind of a product. So both these disruptions are equally important. So how are you preparing for these disruptions, which would be either you create disruption, or the second is with the disruption in environment, how do you cope up with the disruption? So your take on these two topics.
Sure. So I think I'll take them one by one. So I think the disruption in the environment clearly is, again, reaffirming my earlier point, is going to be around climate and how things and regulations are also going to change around that. So I think just being aware of the whole challenge that is happening and figuring it out in your business. First of all, just understanding where you stand in terms of your emissions and what the expectation of now, not only just the regulatory bodies, but in general, the bigger public is for that, and analyzing the emissions in the right way, perfecting your scope 1, scope 2, because when we looked at it, these are complex problems. These are not ready-made solutions which you can just take off, or maybe some Western country has done it 20 years ago and you just replicate it. This is not that. Here, everyone in the world is sort of figuring it out simultaneously, which is a interesting problem that is being faced, or interesting disruptions, because it's happening everywhere in the world. Similar to what happened during COVID, right? The protocols everywhere, everyone in the world was sort of struggling at the same time. So I think just having that sense on the ground. So that is why we encourage a lot of people having access to a lot of experts and consultants around, doing a lot of courses, understanding with leading universities. So we are working with startups, which we do not see any clear business benefit right now, but just to get that access to information, access to early information of what they foresee will be different from a large corporate like us, what we can foresee. So I think that is how we are planning to sort of mitigate some of the potential disruptions, and also getting ourselves technically ready. So just an example, carbon capture technologies are right now on the maturing stage, but what are those technologies? do we design our all plants such that they have a space next to them? We can set up a carbon capture plant in the future. So these are the small design changes that you incorporate in your planning that we are doing in terms of environment disruptions. The second disruption is product disruptions like Apple. So what we are is we are slightly at the back end of the disruptors in the market who will be like the front end people like the Apples of the world and the Samsungs of the world. So there is where the customer communication becomes quite important. So being in touch with the customer, what is their path to success? And one thing I will say is a lot of patience is required, and sometimes that goes against our sort of quick growth mentality, because some of these products for them may be a 10-year journey. It's like you are an overnight success with a 10-year journey, right? That's the saying. So a lot of these products may require you to spend time with your customers over 10 years, where there may be so much ups and downs, which we have successfully done in a couple of cases. But I think that is where our global partner of choice vision really helps us, that standing by the customer for the longer haul, giving them the comfort that even it's fine if they say it's a 2-year delay, it's okay, we will be there. And simultaneously setting up a very good R&D center, which can then help us engage with the customer more dynamically. So I think that is why the whole investment of around 100-120 odd CR that we have done in the research and development center has helped. So thank you.
So, and good to know that you are also heading the R&D part. So what are the new things which are happening on the R&D in Aarti?
So as I mentioned that we want to go forward in our value chain. So a lot of the products are involved in terms of going forward, simultaneously establishing new value chains. The good part is that we will be introducing quite a few technologies, at least for Aarti. Some of these technologies may be also, if not the first time in India, at least very few companies in India do have those technologies, and we are developing them in-house. So a lot of this development work is happening. Simultaneously, what we have done in our technologies, we have specified a technology exploratory group, which just explores around the world whatever is happening. And this may give us some unique insights of whatever is happening in the world. We have a specific lab only doing exploratory work. So it need not be related to what we want to achieve in the next 2 years, but just keep the mind churning so that in the future, maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, we get dividends. So a lot of different strata of activities are being done at the research level.
Thank you, Mirik ji. I come to Ankit ji. Ankit, if you can talk about working in multidisciplinary groups, and we are also saying leading physical and virtual teams is not easy unless and until the standard operating procedures are well defined. And initially, it would have been very difficult for you or the entire chemical industry, because some of only 25% or 50% people were there in the chemical complex. Rest of them were working from their home or different offices. So keeping that into view, how do you see this needs to be nurtured for the next gen leaders? So over to Ankit ji.
So working in multidisciplinary groups, I think it's a very, very important subject, where especially for the leaders, because as a leader or a next gen leader, it's very important to balance, the daily requirements that comes during your work and in your duties. So for example, a single day work allocation, can be a project work or operations or sales, marketing, HR, finance. So there are many subjects, many people to work with. And so it's also very important to stay updated, all the time. From all the teams, from all the different areas. So it's also, I think, very important to, pass on the power to the designated teams or the leaders of your own teams, because I think as a leader, you should not be spending, let's say, 3-4 hours in operations, or daily maybe, let's say, 3-4 hours on sales or commercial parts. It's very important to build your own team, where you have few leaders within those teams, who can actually run those shows on daily basis. But you should also create, as a leader, you should also create a system where you are in touch with them every single day, and you have the right control over the teams. And so that's one part about working in multidisciplinary groups. The second point, you say leading physical and virtual teams. I think so. Physical work has been a traditional way of working, especially here in India. I think before the pandemic, this virtual meetings and virtual style of working did not really exist, especially in chemical manufacturing or large manufacturing kind of setups. But because of this pandemic, I think it's like a blessing in disguise, where everybody was forced to learn, and I think it has done wonders. With somebody like us, we have operations in multiple states across India and also internationally. So something virtual, I think is really working out well for us. I think I think the biggest thing is in the physical meetings world. I think there was a big gaps. When you plan to meet for the same agenda on next time, or when you plan to meet somebody new. Nowadays, we can just connect with somebody, some stranger or somebody new, in matter of few minutes, matter of few hours. So I think it really expedites the overall process of administration or working within the teams. What we have done is we have made sure we have the right infrastructure, starting from our head office to all the plant locations and also internationally. So I think the right, infrastructure of a virtual setup, with the dedicated rooms, etc. I think that's also very important. I think the teams have really adopted very well. I'm talking about people who are in the late 50s, early 60s, who are only familiar with the, spreadsheets or normal computer operations. But I think everybody is now Zoom expert or, all these other platform experts. So I think it's very important. I think it's really helpful, for India and for manufacturing kind of setups.
Thanks, Ankit. Let me come back to Meghav. Definitely increasing exports market share is very important. But in a COVID kind of a scenario where physical contacts was a minimal and it was all based on, say, online or digital media. So how are you increasing exports market share? And what are the different products that you are looking at for what we can say increasing export market share in terms of getting more exports for Deepak Group and finally making it beneficial for the company? So over to Meghav.
So the way I look at this is actually it's a solution in need of a problem kind of place. See, when you look at companies like that, come on your forums, you can see the passion and the determination for growth. It is going to take markets to actually catch up a little bit. So the best thing for Indian companies to do is look at setting up world scale facilities that then are able to cater to international markets until the demand in the country grows itself. We saw a good amount of growth that was happening pre-COVID. Of course, COVID anomalies aside, we are expecting that yes, there is going to be a good amount of catch up that happens, but the uptake has actually been a lot more than what we really thought it would be. So exporting to the world, looking at China plus one philosophy that a lot of MNCs are looking at. We can talk about a lot of chemicals that India can manufacture, has the capability to manufacture, has the resources available, but you look at building blocks at one end of the spectrum and you look at actual consumer materials at the other end. Now post materials, it becomes a product. So staying in the chemical chain, we have good refineries, we have good raw materials and building blocks available. And there is this demand for end products. And you're seeing slowly the entire value chain coming into India. But chemical processes or technologies now needing to be world scale means that you actually have to produce a lot more than what would be your immediate market. So you're going to have to ensure that exports is part of your strategy. Exports is considered in business, even though you may be a very India-centric and a first approach. So to wait for the Indian market to really catch up to world scale. So there is a lot of products in the entire Deepak portfolio. There is a lot of, again, derivatives and downstreams that we are looking at, which would have maybe 60% domestic, 70% domestic, but a 30% export market. And that definitely comes with its risks of global logistics, global supply chains, different expectations from different companies, different government regulations that you need to follow. But at the end of the day, to achieve real economies of scale, especially in your higher upstream products, you're going to have to ensure that global is still very much part of your strategy.
Thank you, Meghav. Let me come to Kaushalji. Sir, you are also looking at increasing exports market share. So how are you planning? How will it be beneficial for MakeMoney Finecare?
Praveerji, historically, MakeMoney Organics, which is our parent company, and MakeMoney Finechem was the subsidiary. Just before 2 months, both the company got demerged. We have been exporting to 80 countries since 1985, when our father and uncle started the business, basically. And in that company, we are manufacturing agro and pigment products. So we have a very good experience in export market and developing export market. Today, we have a great dealer distributor network across all these countries. And we have very loyal customer base also. And that is helping us in MakeMoney Finechem. Although the products are different, MakeMoney Finechem is more into caustic and the downstream products like caustic potash and then epichlorohydrin and CPVC are going to come in next 6 months. But this established network will be beneficial to MakeMoney Finechem. The key thing is that in the export market, people would like to see the reliable services and would like to ensure that whatever we supply them, that is as per the specification and it meets their quality criteria. Whatever we commit, they ensure that they would like to ensure that we meet those commitments. Even in the current scenario where it's very difficult to manage the containers, but we are able to hold our loyal client base and ensuring that they get the delivery as much as possible on time. So these are the key important things, and everything boils down to service beyond your product. And if that combination is there, then definitely you will able to gain in the export market. And same thing will be required eventually in the domestic market also.
One added question to this is the containers are a problem right now. The logistic supply is a problem right now. Raw materials from export market from other countries is a problem. So keeping all these into views, how easy or difficult it is to solve this problem and also do exports at the same time and also meeting the deadline also at the same time.
It's just that from both the side, between you and your customer, you require very intensive discussion and make sure that what is your customers need, by when they want exactly, and you have to keep very transparent communication with them. In today's scenario, all the customers are well aware of the situation. Nothing is hidden. All the informations are available online and through various forums. So customers do understand that these problems are genuine and beyond your control. The only way is to tackle is that, first of all, you need to keep very, very transparent communication. And then, there is no other alternative answer to that as far as the communication is concerned. Second thing is, in most of the cases, yes, we were able to pass on the cost of the extra logistic cost which is incurred, and a customer has accepted that, because the situation is, again, it's not controlled or managed by us. It's somebody else is doing, and everybody's paying the price for that, and everybody's feeling the heat in their balance sheet. So the bottom line is very simple, is that keep transparent communication, keep your customer informed, and I'm sure the situation is manageable. It's a bit difficult for sure, but you can manage it if you want to at the end of the day.
Let me then again reverse the order, and I would ask Kaushal Choparkar. One thing is very clear as a next-gen leader, what you need to do is you always have to stay ahead of the customer and also see what is happening in terms of fast changing needs. So as a leader, how easy or difficult it is, because if you are not able to see the trend of what's happening in the respective customer segment, you will miss the bus. So in order to not miss the bus, what are the things that you are doing so that you have the exact pulse of the market as well as the customer at the same time, and you move in that direction and you become a winner? So over to Kaushal Sopak.
First of all, as a company, what we are trying to ensure that we have good governance practices and we maintain a healthy balance sheet. Now, if you don't have these two, then definitely other things will not become very much important. So these are two primary things as a company, which is in your control and you have to do so. Now, staying ahead of the curve for your customers or fast changing need, you have to keep eye open. You have what we are doing in the company, that we attend various conferences, we become participate in various events. We meet and try to understand from our customer what is their need, where they are seeing the change in the trend. And those insights do give us that, okay, this is the way things are shaping up. This is the way customers looking at new things. And in doing so, you keep your ears open and ready for the development. Customers do demand, they have a right to demand from us that, okay, can you tweak the product like this? And it can give us an enhanced value. And R&D is honestly sometimes a bit of a boring subject, but then you cannot say no to your customer. And if you take this challenge, definitely in that way, you will learn many new things. And in that process, definitely come up with the new method or new product, which can enhance your product portfolio or keep you ahead in the curve. We are not sure from where the competition is going to come. We are not sure what disruption is going to come in which direction. But if our infrastructure is ready and mindset and attitude is there, then definitely it will help us to take the company forward.
Thank you, Kaushal. Megha, the same question is applicable for you also. And I will ask all our speakers to answer on this, that how do you stay ahead of the customer and the market so that you meet the fast changing needs and also make a mark for yourself?
So I don't think it's a debate. Being customer centric, every big company or every company that gets to a significant size has to be a customer centric organization. And customer centric does not mean just your external customer. It doesn't just mean your customer. Look at internal customers also, and look at your customer's customer and their customers. So look at more of a value chain for the customer. At the end of the day, again, we keep thinking that we work as a company independently, but no, we are all part of an ecosystem. So bringing in a collaborative nature to conversations with the customers, to conversations of, what brings value to them, what improves their experience, what is it that they are looking for. These conversations need to happen at multiple levels. And, the more touch points you have, the more you all are able to bank on a relationship. If you look at strategy from large bulk products to more finer niche products, you'll see that the expectation of the relationship with the customer changes when you're a large player. It's more about price, it's more about satisfaction of delivery. While with a more niche player, it's more about actually solving their problems, which requires to really get into understanding what their problems are. So there is a heavy element of collaboration that really needs to happen. For Indian companies, we really need to double down and bring data into our conversations a lot more. And this requires a lot of customer data that really needs to come in. And that really comes from the customer's customer. If we are able to determine what the customer's customer needs before the customer is able to, then we are ready with the product, we're ready with the service, and we're ready with the solution to their issues when it comes up. And again, looking at bulk products to fine and specialty products to performance products, it all changes. And at a company like Deepak, where we are working in all of these spectrums, the strategy does keep changing. And at the end of the day, you have to see where are interests moving into. As Mirik mentioned, that going green and being a responsible player is becoming very important to the end user, is becoming very important to everyone up that value chain. So you have to take a look at what it is you're doing, how you're improving the value, how you're essentially able to offer the same kind of service with a net zero or a net positive impact, to environment at large. So staying ahead of the curve on customer centricity is very simply just collaborate, bring in data into conversations, and ensure that you're not stopping with just your next level of customer, and go really into understanding your value stream.
Ankit, your views on this?
I'll try to cover a couple of points that I feel were not mentioned so far. I think one is a long-term vision, for procurement or sales. I think long-term vision is very important, because since few years, things have changed, the chemical industry in India. Definitely a better period than the previous maybe 20, 30 years. But that has also brought a lot of volatility. So in the volatility, there are definitely, instances when you have better opportunities. Sometimes you've taken orders for 15 days, 30 days, and all of a sudden market changes. Market really increases. Same way in procurement also, the similar kind of things happen all the time. So instead of thinking short term, I think it is important to hold on to your customers, maintain the relationships, and maintain a proper trend where you actually handle the volatility better, which can actually help you in a long-term scenario. Second is environment. I think that's very important. Looking at the opportunity and in the existing setups, I think going ahead of the game with a kind of a vision to set up world-class facilities to to handle whatever effluents or all the environment related things you may have in your processes. But I think to have the right mindset and not to save any money or not to think short term in terms of environment protection is also very important.
Mirik ji, your views?
Yeah, so I think a lot of things are already mentioned, but I'll try to give some challenges that I have seen in terms of staying ahead of the curve. So what happens when we talk to the customer, right? So one thing that has been there is because you have an existing relationship with the customer based on a certain type of product. So
Mirik ji, what I wanted to ask from you is what kind of what we can say intelligence that you are building up. I totally agree with you that we need to stay ahead of the customers. I was talking more from a point of view that what kind of intelligence that you are building within your company so that it is helpful for you to capture these trends or these forward trends so that you can then go back to the drawing board and do whatever is required for your company. My question was with respect to that.
Sure. So I think in terms of the type of analysis that we used to do has really changed. So earlier we used to just focus on analysis on our products. So say we are making an agrochemical intermediate, we just used to understand what are the competitors or what are the say margins or something like that. But now I'll give you an example. In a particular agrochemical intermediate, we are actually going what crop does it grow to and what is the growth rate of that crop in a particular geography. So now that's the level and what's the trend of that crop depending on the lifestyle changes based on say more people are going vegetarian, then how will that impact? So I think the key thing is what we are trying to build is a right analyst team who is able to look at the slightly more farther out things because we are so upstream in the value chain and then trying to get those data points. As Megha rightly mentioned, data is the key. So trying to get those data points and then link it to our products and here customer input is also very important, because the overall things are so clouded. It's not a very transparent system, that we would require a lot of customer input as well. So both our analyst team as well as a good customer input, transparent communication with the customer helps us to build this overall picture, then from which we can take, again, not 100% certain decisions, because that's not possible, but at least still a pretty strong decision. So I think that is how we try to stay ahead, having the more number of analysts and focusing on the right place.
Abhiraj, your views on this?
Problem with going last when for intelligent guys and trying to still sound smart is difficult, but I'll try and do my best. Keep it short. Stuff has been spoken about, but what we try and do is, of course, understand. I think Megha mentioned, understand the customer, and sometimes the customer is also not the final application. So actually going all the way downstream to the final application and the final consumer. And understanding what's going to happen there is important. The way we do that is invest time and resources in industry experts, consultants, also having honest and open discussions with customers. Sometimes, customers also, we find not always open. So actually developing relationships over years to have that honest and open discussion of any disruptions that they're seeing, and to be honest with us about those disruptions and what we can do together to tackle those. So having those discussions with the customer, and also internally with your sales team who's closest to the customer, technical service team, and the R&D team, and coming up with a plan is what we do. A couple of other things is, one of the trends in staying ahead of the needs is sustainability, whether it's in terms of environmental norms, energy consumption, and product life cycle analysis. The current norms are, we all know what the current norms are, but actually staying ahead of the game and seeing, what's going to happen 5 years, 10 years down the road is important. And then the last part is, managing for scale, which sometimes customers themselves don't have, they underestimate what 5 or 10 years later would look like. And in the chemical industry, it's not always easy to just get a line overnight. So actually, managing for scale is also something that we try and estimate.
There are two questions which I have got from the same person, Jitan Desai from GNFC, and I would request if you can, and this question is to Megha Bhai and to Ankit Bhai. So I would request them to just answer them short in 30 seconds so that I can do the wind up. Megha Bhai, the question is, if you have to increase capacity of phenol, I think availability of propylene is a bottleneck. So how do you take care of that? And to Ankit is, how do you rate the importance of MIS for an industry leader to function/control multitasking? So first to Megha and then to Ankit.
Yeah, so definitely, if you want to increase phenol production, propylene is a bottleneck. And that's where we may have to turn to more global supplies. That's where we may have to look at maybe more partnerships with Indian companies who can actually debottleneck their own plants to be able to provide these basic building blocks for us.
And Ankit?
So in today's world, obviously MIS is extremely important. Something that I do is, I start my work on WhatsApp from, the moment I wake up till probably the moment I go to sleep. So my WhatsApp is extremely active. I probably have more than 15 groups, across the different teams and different sectors within our company. So that's, I think, something, I've really adopted well, and teams are doing really good, as far as how we are updated and about the daily orders, daily data, everything. So it's very important.
So many thanks to all our next-gen leaders. I had a wonderful time speaking to all of you. And there was a lot of clarity, there was a lot of focus, and there was a lot of analysis, whatever that you said. And I think all this was really helpful for our delegates. Let me thank, first of all, a big clap to all our people. So you can also see the physical clap from our office, and you can listen the voice, the audio part of it. Let me thank Mr. Kaushal Suparkar, MD Negmani Fine Chem Limited, Mr. Megha Mehta, Director Deepak Phenolics Limited, Mr. Ankit Patel, Executive Director, Bodil Chemicals Limited, Mr. Mirik Gogri, Head Corporate Strategy, Aarti Industries Limited, Mr. Aviraj Choksi, MD, Apcotex Industries Limited. I'm really thankful that you took time and enlightened our delegates, and hope in future we will get more time to speak with you.